My name is Wynter. I write children's books. Right now, all the books I have coming out are picture books and board books, but I am actively working on some early readers and chapter books. I have 2 children. I'm a cat lover, as you may have already realized, but I can only have 1 cat because my cat actually hates other cats, so I am limited in that way. I live in Austin, Texas, and I am born and raised in Houston. So my first book is called Everybody in the Red Brick Building, and it's coming out in October of this year. It is published by Balzer Bray, and for many reasons, I'm very excited about this. It's my first book. My kids are excited about it, but I think the biggest reason I am just thrilled about this book is that it is illustrated by one of my favorite illustrators, Oge Mora. You probably know her book, Thank You, Amu, her book, Saturday, which is one of my all-time favorite picture books. And she illustrated The Oldest Student. All of these are beautiful, beautiful books. And I feel really honored that Everybody in the Red Brick Building will be in her body of work. And she did an absolutely stunning job with the illustrations. So I primarily wanted to talk about what was the inspiration behind Everybody in the Red Brick Building. And so I'm going to go back to over a decade ago when I lived in Chicago. And this was the building I lived in. Now you can't tell from the picture, but my unit in this building was very, very small. I was trying to find pictures of myself when I lived in this apartment. It was hard to find them, but here is one of my cat just knocked down something. And there she is in the picture, same cat. This is me right when you walked in the door of the apartment. It was a very narrow hall that led right into, it was a studio apartment. I know this seems like this is just a slideshow of your cat, but I have this picture because you can see I was taking it in the kitchen, and if you look over her shoulders, you can see the bed super close, and it was a studio all kind of very tight together. The bed was took up a huge portion of the whole apartment. And if I were giving this presentation in New York, I don't think I would mention how small the apartment was because New Yorkers would probably be like, oh, that's nothing. But this is a Texas conference, so I think y'all understand everything is bigger in Texas, including, thank goodness, the apartment units. But because it was so small, everybody was, right on top of each other. And I had a few just funny memories from that time when I lived there. One was that I didn't have cable and streaming wasn't quite a thing anymore as of yet. So sometimes I would sit on that bed back there and lean up against the wall, and I could hear my next door neighbor. I could hear him watching episodes of Parks and Rec, and I could hear almost every word because the walls are really thin. I could hear almost every word of the episode. I could hear him laughing. Then I would be laughing because I'd be listening to the dialogue too. And it was like this weird way that I don't know if he could hear me laughing. If he did, he probably thought it was very strange. But it was like this weird way of connecting with somebody when we weren't even seeing each other. Similarly, my ceiling was really squeaky. And so whenever the person above me, I could hear every single step she took. So when she came home, and I'm also just imagining that it was a woman, but I don't know. I could hear when she came home. I could hear when she went to the kitchen. I was like, oh, maybe she's cooking something. She's been in there for a while. I hear when she went to the bathroom, like coming back to the bed, I was like, okay, I think she's gone to bed for now. And I never, ever saw this person. So it was this, again, another kind of surreal connection without ever interacting with somebody. And then the other thing about this apartment was that it was right down the street from Wrigley Field. And so there was always lots of noise of people going to Cubs games, coming from Cubs games, being upset because they lost, being excited because they won. So there was just always a lot of city noise. So I took all those things with me. And so now that was one big source of inspiration. Another big source of inspiration, I'm going to take it way back now to when I was about this age. I remember reading, I know I read a lot of books and stories, but this story really stuck out to me. I read it over and over and over and over. And it was The House That Jack Built. And if you don't remember The House That Jack Built, it goes something like this. This is the house that Jack built. This is the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lived in the house, that lay in the house that Jack built. And there was something really comforting about that sort of repetition, the way it built on itself and kept building and building. And I really, I think I really internalized that structure in everybody in the Red Brick Building. I actually used a cumulative structure when I wrote it. So I think that just feel that it gave me when I was young really stuck with me. And so before I started writing children's books, I wrote plays. And I was still very much, for a long time, just so into the thought of people connecting between their apartment units. And I tried to write a play about it, a full-length play for adults. And I wrote draft after draft after draft after draft after draft after draft. For years and years, I worked on this, and it never went anywhere. It was just not. It was not good. All of the different versions were not good, but I just knew that something, or I felt like something in this idea was special, and I never quite gave up on that. So then a couple years before I wrote Everybody in the Red Brick Building, I lived in this apartment in Austin, and I brought home this baby to that apartment. And then I lived in this apartment, and I brought home this baby. And both times when I came home the first night home from the hospital, I remember thinking, when this baby cries in the middle of the night, and the person on the other side of the wall, because the babies, they both slept in our bedrooms, and we said it was because it was recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, but it was actually because we didn't have any room to put them in another area. So they were in our bedroom the whole first year. And I just remember thinking, whoever's on the other side of this wall was probably getting ready to go to sleep and getting cuddled up and snuggled up in their bed and drifting off. And then they hear a newborn baby cry, and they must be thinking oh my gosh, this baby's gonna cry several times a night for the next who knows how long. And this was not something they knew was going to happen, because this wasn't somebody I had encountered in real life. So they didn't know there was a baby coming. What must they be thinking? And that really stuck with me too, because the first sound in Everybody in the Red Brick Building, which is there is a baby who cries and wakes up a child in another apartment unit, who wakes up a child in another apartment unit, who wakes up somebody else, until the whole building is awake. So this thought of somebody crying in the middle of the night, waking up people, it was really something that stuck with me as well. So all of these different elements came together to help me write this book. And this picture actually doesn't have anything to do with it, but as you can tell, I love my cat. And I think she takes really great pictures in costume, but also it kind of does have something to do with the book, because there ended up being a gray cat. I wrote a cat into the book, and Oge Mora made it a gray cat, which was really special to me. So that's a little bit about Everybody in the Red Brick Building. So what's next after that? I have 2 board books coming out in early 2022, also with Balzer Bray. The covers aren't out yet, but here's some sample artwork from the interiors, and one of them is called One Big Day. It's about a baby turning 1, and the other one is called Hands On, which is about a baby learning how to crawl. And then in 2023, I have a book called Nell Plants a Tree. It's coming out, and it's illustrated by Dana Miyares, also with Balzer Bray. And then in 2025, I have a book that hasn't been announced yet, but I'm really excited about it. It's about an aspect of Black Texan history. And I'm super, super happy because the illustrator who is going to be working on it is also a Black Texan. So I think it's going to be a really special, special book. So that's all. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but feel free to take a screenshot of, here's my website, my email, and my Instagram. And I will also put this in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see if there is anything. But thank you so much for taking the time to listen and be here.